Welcome everyone, Winsome Gayle here with another edition of Brief Encounters, the DC Bar Community's podcast channel. Today, we are concluding our Well-Being Community series, The 6 Pillars of Well-Being, to help us thrive professionally and personally. Today, we have a special guest to talk with us about the social pillar of well-being. Our guest today is Cintra Harbold. Cintra comes to us from Maryland, where she practices psychotherapy, helping professionals achieve well-being. Cintra, welcome.
Hey, Winsome, thank you. Thanks for inviting me. And also thanks to the DC Bar Association for hosting this series.
Thank you for joining us, Cintra. Now, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to psychotherapy?
Yes. So I have been in the work world for over 35 years, but I haven't always been a psychotherapist. I have worked in a variety of settings and over the years worked in nonprofit organizations and educational institutions and worked with a variety of people from different backgrounds and different age groups. But the common theme for me across all those jobs was really seeing the important role mental health plays in everyone's life. So I would say that some of my own personal experiences were what motivated me, and those experiences were what motivated me to become a therapist. You know, we're not often taught a lot about how to take care of our mental health. And so I really wanted to support folks in their mental health journey and help them maximize their quality of life.
That's wonderful. Now, can you explain to us what the social pillar of well-being is?
Absolutely. So we know that the concept of well-being is multidimensional, and there's not just one thing that contributes to our well-being, right? So the social pillar of well-being, which is one of the 6 pillars mentioned in the ABA report, focuses on the importance of connection with others. So having meaningful relationships in our lives, feeling a sense of belonging, and finding ways to contribute to our community. And, you know, Winsome, this isn't a new concept, right? We know that it's not something that's just coming out of the blue here, but it is one that I think is harder to achieve in more modern times. There's a famous quote by Aristotle who says, humans by nature are social beings. And we are definitely social animals. We are literally hardwired, biologically hardwired to be social. And I always like to bring in biology and facts about the body when I talk about anything related to psychology, because there's so much on the inside of us, our physiology, that reinforces what we see on the outside in our behaviors. So as humans, we have a natural inclination towards connection that is deeply rooted actually in how we have evolved and survived over time. For example, we literally have a biochemical reward system that reinforces our desire for connection, and it makes social interaction pleasurable for us. So we have hormones like oxytocin, also called the bonding hormone, and that is released during positive social interactions, and it promotes trust and attachment. Things like empathy, which allows us to understand and share others' feelings, that has also developed and evolved as an important social tool because it encourages cooperation and group cohesion, both which are important for survival. So as humans, we have an intrinsic need for belonging and connecting, which is as fundamental as, let's say, the need for food and water.
Wow, that is incredibly powerful. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's important for us to reflect on the fact that this is not a new concept, as you said. This is ancient and deeply rooted into who we are as beings. So, lawyer humans, we're not immune to any of that, right? And our careers are a big component for us of our lives and our sense of community. And many of us are drawn to the law for certain reasons. Me personally, I got into social justice work, but I also did some private practice. And I find a lot of meaning and purpose and my sense of community and belonging. I have found that in my legal practice. Yet at the same time, I think sometimes we lean too heavily into that side of our beings, and we seek those outlets in legal circles as well and end up burning out sometimes, right? We don't step back. So, how can we use the social pillar and the understandings that you've talked about to avoid burnout?
Yeah, there's no doubt that social interaction and a sense of belonging influences our individual well being. Research actually shows that strong social connections are linked to reduced stress and improved mood, and that people with healthy social connections often report higher happiness and life satisfaction. Even beyond the emotional benefits, social connections are also associated with physical health advantages like living longer and healthier. So, in comparison to that, when our human need for social connection is not fulfilled, there can be a negative consequence. Yeah. So, for our health and well being, a study published in the ABA journal in 2018 showed that lawyers rank highest on a loneliness scale. And we know that prolonged social isolation and loneliness are associated with increased risks of depression and anxiety. We also know that the absence of any kind of meaningful interaction with people, with others, can lead to despair and hopelessness and a lack of sense of purpose. So, all of this also manifests physically as well. So, chronic loneliness can weaken the immune system and increase risk of developing chronic diseases. All of those potential outcomes actually highlight the fact that social connection isn't just kind of a desirable afterthought, but actually foundational for us to flourish as humans. So, to your point about relying on work as a source of community or just how do we get out of that, I think it's really natural and healthy to find community in our workplace. It's where we spend a lot of time, it's familiar, and it's certainly convenient, and certainly healthy and helpful to have positive relationships with colleagues. But think about this, what do you normally talk about when you're with your coworkers? Even when it's like at a happy hour or at a restaurant? We usually talk about work, right? We usually talk about work. So even if you're friends with your coworkers, we need to be engaged in activities and with people that remind us also that there's a bigger and broader world out there. Our viewpoint and our lives can become very narrow otherwise. And the narrower our perspective and experiences, the less resilient and flexible our brain becomes. So you've heard of neuroplasticity?
Yes.
Yeah, this idea that the brain's capacity to adapt and its structure and function actually are malleable, can grow, they can change, it can adapt. And so when we expand our social network and expand our activities and experiences, we can actually help our brains be more neuroplastic.
Wow. That's super helpful. Just talking about this lawyer loneliness epidemic and the narrowing of our social world and the need to get out of that. A lot of lawyers, and the ABA report talks about this, try to seek that society sometimes through not the most healthy ways, right? We have a higher incidence of among the general population of alcohol abuse and substance abuse, and that is unfortunate. And there are healthier ways to engage socially, even within the workplace. For example, I've gone out to lunch with colleagues outside and what have you, and I have colleagues who have joined running groups, talking about expanding that circle, running groups that are comprised of more than lawyers and people within the legal community, because it also impacts our support staff and other folks within our world and folks who have done charity events and what have you. What are other ways in which we can nurture our social well being outside of the usual happy hour context?
So, Winsome, you just named some excellent starting points for folks. So many of us spend our lunch hours at our desk and in front of the computer working, catching up, etc. I have actually, in fact, I have a client who is a newer lawyer and super motivated, wanting to do a good job, but they feel that pressure, right? They feel the pressure. And being a lawyer is not easy job. It can be high stress. It's busy. There's a lot of work. You're interacting with difficult people sometimes. So Do we want a person to burn out in 2 years? No. I think that's why you all have this initiative, right? You want to have a well-rounded, healthy outside life. So we talk about this stuff in our sessions and the importance of taking breaks, not staying at your desk for lunch, reaching out to others, finding mentorship, and just remembering generally what else is important to you in your life. So do something that's fun for yourself during the week. Find a hobby, find something that you like to do. It's got to be okay to take breaks, right? We've got to give ourselves permission for that, as hard as it might feel in the moment to do that. Invite a colleague to eat lunch together, like you said. That's a great idea. Go outside, take a walk with someone, even just for a little bit. And here's where I will actually take a moment to make a brief public service announcement. So, stepping outside, being outside, and I know you like the outdoors and appreciate the outdoors when some.
Yes.
I'm also a nature informed therapist. And that essentially means that I have a certification that proves, that shows that I know and I understand some of the science and the wonderful health benefits that nature has on us as humans. And that engaging with the natural world can make a positive difference in our lives, in our mental health and our physical health. So there's been a lot of research done showing the benefits of nature on us. So that's my PSA. Get outside as much as you can and do it with another person, at least one other. But, join a walking group. There are meetup groups for everything out there. Sit in the grass, sit on a bench, talk to someone, watch the birds, talk to the birds, bring a plant into the office. Yeah. Anyway, but I also want to acknowledge my fellow introverts out there because I know there's people who it might feel intimidating to interact with others or be in a larger group. You don't have to socialize in large groups, right? You can be with one person, two other people. You don't have to be front and center when you engage in community activities. Just being around other people and talking to one person can give you the benefits of that positive social pillar. Join an online virtual group, if nothing else. If you're not sure about going out in person, there's lots of online groups out there as well.
Thank you. And thanks for talking about our introverted colleagues as well. Because yeah, all of this socializing may seem intimidating to them, but it does not have to be a huge step. You don't have to go into a great room full of people in order to interact and tap into that social component of your well-being. So I truly appreciate that. I also appreciate you talking about the nature component as well. And the simple thing is having a plant in your office. I've had plants in my office my entire career. And I tell you one thing it does, it will invite people sometimes to come and say something, admire your plant, what have you. And you know what? If it becomes intimidating to our introverted friends, hopefully you have an office door you can close it or put the plant outside of the office. But just connecting with each other and connecting in nature I found helpful. So I appreciate you talking about that. So, Cintra, what's one key takeaway for folks about the social pillar of well-being?
Yeah, I think, really just taking time for ourselves, taking time for yourself outside of work to do something different and spending time with others, engaging in activities other than work related activities. It's not a waste of time. It's not unproductive. In fact, it will help you be more productive and sustainable in the long run. So find at least one outside, quote unquote, outside interest other than work, whether it be a hobby or some kind of event, be involved in that. And then find a group or at least one other person who does that activity too and share it with them. Golf, pickleball, a book club. Find what works for you. Find something that you're curious about and go after it. And that's one place to start.
That's awesome. Thank you. And, you know, some of us had a lot of different interests before we got into the law and sometimes forget that. And so I would add a reminder to people to tap into the interest that you may have had and kind of put to the side because law school
Yes,
and then
yes.
legal career and then, you
Yes.
know, the other things.
Yes, yes. Very good point. Absolutely.
So, Cintra, how can people learn more about you and connect with you?
Yeah. So I work at a group practice. I'm located in Towson, Maryland. The practice is called the Counseling Center, and it's on Providence Road in the Towson area. So people can look up that. We've got a website and a phone number, and I hope to be running some groups in the future, and hopefully those groups will take place in the outdoors, some of them. So yeah, just be on the lookout and be part of that.
Great. That sounds fantastic and super fun. So, for our audience, we will put the link to Cintra's organization in the show notes. Cintra, thank you so very much for joining us today. We truly appreciate your insight on this very important component of well being.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me talk. It's such a great topic.
Wonderful. And thanks to our audience for listening today. I hope today's conversation was informative as well as inspiring. The DC Bar Wellbeing Community is open to those who are interested in connecting and in being part of changing our profession to embrace well-being professionally and personally. Be sure to check out Towards Wellbeing, the DC Bar's Lawyer Assistance Program's podcast channel. And there's always something happening at the DC Bar, live programs, on demand programs. Go over to the DC Bar's website to learn more about how you can get connected with us. And thank you so much for joining us today. Take care.